Dear students, now we are going to discuss about the first topic, active and passive sensor. So here, first we should know that what is active sensor and what are the difference between active sensor and passive sensor. Active sensors are generate their own energy source to illuminate targets. For example, in practical, we have the radar system. So you might see in some satellite communication examples. So that the radar light, it generates its own energy and it will be reflected back and we are collected. Okay. So based on the reflection of that particular image, so we are collecting the information. So first the radar light, it will be illuminate and it will be reflected back. So that energy only we are measuring. So that is called as what? Active sensor. For example, one more example also. So if you are using the general camera of any devices, for example mobile camera or any camera, see here by you are clicking the image, so that camera emits its own energy and that particular illumination of light, it will be target on the object and the light will be reflected back. So that reflected light contains some information about that image. So that thing only we call that image. So this is also the active sensor. So normally in practical we have active sensors systems are radar, lidar, and some general cameras. Okay, and the next thing is that passive sensor, it detects naturally occurring energy like sunlight or heat. In practical, what are the main difference between active sensor and passive sensor? Means active sensor requiring power, but passive sensor require no external power for sensing. It depends on ambient conditions. For example, so today the sunlight is more means then the emission of the light is more. Here for that we can take the example of solar systems. So in the solar system, see here, so it getting the energy from sun and it will be storing in some devices. Yes. So here there is no external power for sensing. It is naturally available energy. So this is the main difference between active sensor and passive sensor. So finally, you should understood what are the main difference between active sensor and passive sensor. Means active sensor emits energy, but passive sensor receives existing energy, making active sensors more complex but controllable. But passive sensors are simpler but dependent on natural light or heat. So now we are going to discuss this active sensor and passive sensor in detail. See here that active sensors are emit their own energy and measure the backscatter or reflection from the target. So here the power required for active sensors are to generate the signal and making them energy dependent. So here we require external power source to generate the signal. So further the examples already we have discussed, that radar, lidar and sonar and laser system. So now see here some ultrasonic sensors also we are using this concept only. See now you can understood clearly about this active sensor. First it generates the pulses to that particular object. So like our camera. So camera first it will be flash the light and it will capture the image by reflected point. The same thing only here also. This is the example of radar point. So now see here first we have generated the pulse and the written pulse only we are having the information. So this is the example of active sensor. And what are the advantages of this active sensors? Are first it can operate day or night in any weather condition. So it will provide control over emitted signal, offering consistent data and a high sensitivity and signal strength. And the second thing is disadvantages of active sensors are more complex and expensive and high power consumption may influence the target due to emitted energy. So now we are going to discuss about the passive sensors in detail. So in the passive sensors are detect naturally available energy such as sunlight, thermal radiation as heat, and sound waves. So here you do not need any external power to generate a signal. They just detect existing energy, making them energy independent for sensing. So previously we have discussed the active sensors are energy dependent, but passive sensors are energy independent. So here we can use that optical camera. So the general cameras, it will using the external power energy to illuminate the light. But here these optical cameras uses sunlight, and the another sensors are infrared sensor, microphones, and passive infrared motion detectors, not Jesus. So make maximum majority of the sensors are passive sensors only. So here the main difference between, see here, the passive sensor, the sources of energy, it target on some object, then it will be collected by passive sensor. But here that pulse will be returned back to active sensor itself. So this is the main difference between active sensor and passive sensor. And we can discuss about the advantage of passive sensors. It will be simpler, lower cost, less power, and less intrusive, measure ambient condition. And disadvantages is dependent on natural energy sources, lower signal strength, more susceptible to environmental interference. And here this is the practical examples of active sensors and passive sensors. See here that where we are using these active and passive sensors means in remote sensing application. So now see here, so this is one satellite sensor system. So here first the sun energy will be hit on some object, that will be reflected back to some passive sensor, so that will be sent back to ground station. So this is the active sensor system. See that object itself, it will be reflected back that energy, and it will be stored on active sensor, then it will be reflected back. So the main difference is here these passive sensors are uses the natural energy, but in the active sensors it uses the own energy for illumination or any sensing application. So thank you.